Baylor should really just pack it in and go home right now because they have no shot against Duke.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Like I said, they're the number one team in the country, but anything happens in March.
Anything can happen. It's another episode of Locked On Baylor bonus edition brought to you by Nissan. Welcome on in. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. Got to get a little bit of a quicker trigger on that opening video. Anyway, the Bears have their matchup and have their time. They will face on the number one Duke Blue Devils Sunday afternoon, 1:40 Central Time. We will give you the breakdown and the keys to that game, the many underlying storylines of this one, revenge opportunities for Baylor, for Jeremy Roach, for VJ Edgecombe, plus the ultimate hope that Baylor has in this game. All that and more coming up on this bonus episode of Locked On Baylor. I'm sure you've heard plenty of analysts, pundits, fans, ne'er-do-wells saying the same thing I said in the open. Why is Baylor even going to play this game? It's going to get ugly. Duke, nobody can beat Duke. Everybody's picking Duke in their bracket. You know, there's no chance that they're going to be able to take down this awesome number one seed Duke Blue Devils team that just beat Mount St. Mary's by 44 points after Baylor squeaked by the also-rans in the SEC, the Mississippi State Bulldogs. But you know what? They're playing on Sunday. The game's going to be played. I don't have the latest as we do this on Saturday morning. The latest that I have seen is that that Baylor is still in Raleigh, that they are planning to play the game on Sunday afternoon. So despite the prognostications of doom, I am happy to report that Baylor will take the floor against the Duke Blue Devils. And then you've got a chance. But I'm not going to lie to you guys. This Duke team is intimidating. They've got the number one pick in the draft. Baylor's probably got the number 3 or 4 pick in the draft, but Duke's got number 1. And they're probably the most complete team in college basketball. They are tall. They are energetic. They play damn good defense. They're very athletic, and they can score in a bunch of different ways. Like Baylor did yesterday, Duke had 4 scorers in double figures, and all but one player on their roster put the ball in the hoop in an NCAA tournament game. This team is good. Don't get me wrong. But I think there are avenues for Baylor to shock the world on Sunday. And the main thing for me, from a Baylor standpoint, what they have to do in this game Sunday, which they did against Mississippi State on Friday, is they've got to control the offensive glass. You look at Duke and you see the height and you see the great players they have in the front court, but what you don't see is they're just an okay offensive rebounding team. Now, Baylor has been up and down in that department, and certainly the loss of Josh O back in February certainly helped kind of the Jekyll and Hyde of this thing. It wasn't, they were a strong, solid offensive rebounding team through the first couple months of the season. Then Josh Ojamuna goes down, and it kind of depends on the night. In that game against Mississippi State, they dominated. They dominated on the offensive glass. They out-offensive rebounded them 15-7, and they had 22-11 in second chance points. Doubled up their opponent in second chance points. You're going to win a lot of tournament games doing that. The teams that go the farthest, that go to the Final Four, that win the national championship, they're excellent rebounding teams, especially on the offensive end. Duke got out-offensive rebounded by Mount St. Mary's. Obviously, it didn't make a huge difference in the scoreline because it's a 1 versus a 16. But you bring in another team that's got, got some guys with Final Four experience that played in the Big 12, that had the 6th toughest schedule throughout this whole season. And maybe that is a little bit different. Maybe you can't afford to get out offensive rebounded the way you did against Mount St. Mary's. That might be the only prayer that Baylor has in this thing, other than prayer itself. Because that's something that the Bears can do. Now, it's going to come down to a matchup of North Chatham-Mere and Maluach for Kaman. Is that how you say it? Kaman Maluach for Duke. And that's a tough matchup. I mean, this is a series of tough matchups, right? Like Jalen Celestine is either covering Cooper Flagg or Con Knipple, Like that's brutal. And they don't have a third 6'7" to 6'9" wing to match up. They'll have Omir on Malawach. They'll have Celestine probably on Flagg, I guess. And then VJ on Knipple. Like VJ can guard. He's got that long wingspan. He can guard a little bit past 6'5", but Cooper Flagg 6'9". It's a really tough thing to do. So it's going to come down to individual matchups, and I worry about that. Malawach is a lot like Yves Misi, actually. 7'2", 250, lanky, dunker spot, creates a ton of havoc in the low post. Norchad Omir, chaos merchant in the low post, but a generous 6'7", plays well above his height, but he's giving up 7 inches to Malawach, and he's giving up 10 pounds to Malawach. That's not going to be easy. It is going to take a Herculean effort from Norchad Omir, and he's done it before, and he's one of those guys that has been there. We talked about it with this team all season long, with Jeremy Roach, which we'll get more to in the next segment. But Jeremy Roach and Norchad Omir, those are two guys you brought in because they have been in these battles, because they've won 16 tournament games between them coming into this NCAA tournament. And maybe we were making too much about it, but VJ Edgecombe actually talked about this from the game, after the game yesterday. This is from friend of the program, Sydney Wicker. She had an off day, so I gave her the off day, but she did some good work for us yesterday, some exclusive sound. And this is what VJ Edgecombe said about having those guys in their locker room, even for what's been an up and down season.
I have guys on my team that's been to Final Fours, so they know what it takes. So, just having them lead us and stuff like that, I have nothing more faith in them.
And it's going to take everything they have. Like obviously for VJ and Langston Love and Rob Wright too, but looking at those two guys, Norchad Omir, who gave it his all again in this first round game, and Jeremy Roach, who wasn't deemed appropriate to play at the end of this tight game in the tournament against Mississippi State. Those are your two veteran guys. Those are your two Final Four guys. You are going to need every ounce that they have. Everything they have left in the tank has to be poured out there against Duke on Sunday if Baylor has a chance to win. And I don't think that's too much of an exaggeration. I don't find that hyperbole. I need a lot of things need to go right for Baylor to win this game. And maybe the biggest one is that those two guys in particular, who know what it takes to get to a Final Four and win in this tournament, and have only one guaranteed basketball game left, those guys need to empty the tank. They need to give it all out there if Baylor is going to have a chance to participate and shock the world Sunday and upset the Duke Blue Devils. There are all kinds of storylines in this one, man. Revenge is to be had potentially in this game tomorrow. We will tell you what those storylines are, how these guys can get revenge on the teams that passed on them, the teams that let them go by, and the players that have been overshadowing them. We'll talk about that next on this special bonus edition of Locked On Baylor. But first, a word from our sponsor, which today is Nissan, since it is, the college basketball tournament. We're all about the stats because the numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MOP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear, wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Baylor and Duke is what it's going to say on the scoreboard, but there's so much more that goes into this matchup. First and foremost, Jeremy Roach playing against his old team. This is the team that more or less left him out there, right? They went with Jared McCann last year. Jeremy Roach was playing off the ball. First thing he said when he came to Baylor was, "I'm the point guard." Now, that hasn't necessarily worked out, but it certainly screamed like, I hated what Duke did to me at the end there. I'm a point guard, and I'm going to show you I'm a point guard. Now, Jeremy Roach did say that he keeps up with some of the Duke players, Tyrese Proctor being one. He says he talks to the coaches every couple of weeks, that he does keep in contact, doesn't really have any ill will towards Duke, but we know how that thing goes. We know how that goes. Here's what Jeremy Roach said about looking at the bracket and seeing that this could be a possibility, which is now a reality.
It's just another basketball game. Can't really think too much about it. Can't really think. Can't try to show out, try to prove anything. Just got to play basketball, try to get a win.
How long after the matchups got released did you say, like, oh, we played Duke?
I mean, I knew it was going to happen. I had a feeling that the committee was going to do something like that.
They say they don't, but they definitely do.
So seeing that, it was kind of funny, but super exciting too. Just have that opportunity to play them.
Just another basketball game. Pardon my French. Just another basketball game, my ass. Okay? This is a chance to get at the guys who didn't invest in you being their point guard for the future, who did give you 4 years, granted, and took you to a Final Four with a different coach. This is the coaching staff that didn't want you to be running their show. This is more than just a basketball game for Jeremy Roach. And it could be the last for Jeremy Roach. I think that needs to be his focus in this game. If I could tell him anything, it's like, man, you have one more guaranteed basketball game. You have had a hell of a career. You probably won't get to another Final Four like we thought you might going into this season when we were a preseason top 10 team. But you have a chance to do something really full circle here and knock off the team that you accomplished so much with, that you started almost 100 games for. That's a big deal. And again, I need a nuclear Jeremy Roach in this game. I need a superhuman Jeremy Roach. The one that we saw in the game Friday against Mississippi State, if you get that Jeremy Roach, you are going to be packing it up. You are going to be going home early. 6 points on 3 of 7 shooting in only 14 minutes. 14 minutes for Jeremy Roach in an NCAA tournament game. That's not what he was picturing when he was coming to Baylor after all the success that he had at Duke and the money that he got to come here. I don't think he was picturing being a 9 seed and playing 14 minutes in the first round. But that has a chance to all go away if you upset number one, the team that you used to play for, and the team that America used to hate, and you play more than 14 minutes and show us how you got to a Final Four, how you led them to a Final Four in 2022. You have a chance to do that in this game. So revenge is on the table for Jeremy Roach. Revenge is on the table for Baylor fans of a certain vintage, and certainly Scott Drew, who remember 2010 and that Elite Eight game in which Baylor was almost the Cinderella story of the tournament, which also had Butler in it. Okay? If they had gone to the Final Four so soon after the scandal, the tragedy of 2003, that would have been the biggest basketball story in the country outside of Butler. So there's revenge on the table there. There's also probably a little bit something extra for Baylor's star freshman, VJ Edgecombe. Because VJ, since he came to this country as a high schooler out of the Bahamas, he was one of the top high school basketball players in the country. And was one of the phenoms and had one of the great highlight tapes. And I have to say for all of these things, because this whole time in his ascent in this game of basketball, there's always been Cooper Flagg. And they've always said Cooper Flagg's better than you. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say VJ's outright better than Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg is a hell of a player. And he is the number 1 pick in the draft. And he's all those things for a reason. But if you're VJ Edgecombe, and with how much you've grown and how talented a player you are, you can't get to this level without having that ultra competitiveness. And you're hearing at every turn for years now that Cooper Flagg is better than you, that you're really good, but that Cooper Flagg is better than you. And VJ almost played at Duke. That's what is down to Duke, Kentucky, and Baylor. And, he's got recruiting photos in Duke uniforms and next to Cooper Flagg, right? He had a chance to team up with Cooper Flagg. Instead, he wanted to go against him. Now you've got your wish. Here it is in the NCAA tournament on the biggest stage, March Madness. you get to play against him. So when our Sydney Wicker asked VJ what that's like, he tried to keep it humble, but you could read between the lines here.
I played against Coop multiple times. Me and Coop got a relationship too, off the court. But I've played against him multiple times. I know it's not just him; it's the whole team. They have a really talented team. They've been top 3 all year, so he really runs it over there too, projecting number 1. But like I said, Coop is a great player, man. I have none but respect for him. So yeah.
Have you talked to him all lately?
Lately? Nah. I ain't been focused on my team. We still, like I said, we still have a friendship off the court. We're still super close. So, but nah, I haven't talked to him.
So he says there at the beginning, I've played against Coop multiple times, which those of us, who follow sports for a long time, what he's saying there. What he's saying without saying is, I'm not afraid of Cooper Flagg. I've played against him plenty of times. I ain't afraid of this guy. And, Rob Wright played with him, so he knows his tendencies too. Rob Wright played high school with him at Montverde. But VJ's basically saying there, nope, I'm not afraid of this guy. I relish this opportunity. And I love the follow-up by Sydney, because Jeremy Roach had talked about, I talk with those guys all the time. He says, you talk to them lately? No, I'm focused on my team. I love that. Like there's, and you see it there. VJ is a very humble kid. He's not going to come out and just say, I want to, beat their butt on Sunday. I want to put Cooper Flagg in a blender. He's not going to say that. Right. But you saw kind of the demeanor in which he answered that. He's like, yeah, played with Coop. We have a relationship. But he said without saying, like, I want to beat him on Sunday, like no doubt. And you could feel it through that answer. Like VJ Edgecombe is as looking for blood as VJ Edgecombe could be, I guess, in this matchup against Cooper Flagg. He has heard his whole time playing basketball that you're good, but Cooper's just a little bit better. And as much of a mismatch as this is, team against team on Sunday, he's got the opportunity to put some of that behind him by knocking out Cooper Flagg and ending his college career. It's a stretch, sure, but he can do that. God, all kinds of storylines in this game. And there's one thing that Baylor has that can absolutely propel them to victory against Duke. And I have a serious confession to make. We are going to reveal both of those things next on Locked On Baylor. But first, daylight savings snuck up on us again. And if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep still, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little bit of a boost to power through. I know we are staying up late watching basketball all day with the NCAA tournament. Sometimes you squeak in a round of golf after work, or you're just trying to keep up with your busy day after the basketball is over. 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. I've been staying up late. I know you have too. 5-Hour Energy has gotten me through it. So whether I'm at a game or I'm traveling at this time of year, 5-Hour Energy is easy to grab and keeps me feeling refreshed. There we go. That's the word. I need more 5-Hour Energy. Head over to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered straight to your door. Need one now? Well, you can grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. Baylor and Duke, 1:40 Central Time this Sunday. And guys, I love doing this show every day. I love the audience we have. Sometimes in football season, it gets a little lean, but I know there are some of you diehards that stick with us every day and make it your first listen today and every day. And I always try to be straight up and honest with you guys. Calling it like I see it is pretty much my only job description for the Locked On Baylor podcast. And I've made mention of this a few times on the podcast over the years, but I think it's worth fessing up to as we have this matchup, which is finally played out. Baylor and Duke has almost happened a couple of times in the NCAA tournament in the last decade. Now it's actually happening. So I need to admit something to you guys. Cam is short for Cameron. Okay. And Cameron Stewart was named after Cameron Indoor Stadium in Durham, North Carolina, the home of the Duke Blue Devils, the hallowed home of the Duke Blue Devils, because Cameron Stewart's dad went to Duke. And Cameron Stewart grew up a fanatical Duke fan, like as hardcore a Duke basketball fan as you can find. Before that was cool, okay? Back when Duke was the most hated team in all of sports, okay? And when he went to middle school and high school and no one else was a Duke fan and would get relentlessly chirped when Duke would lose any kind of game, let alone an NCAA tournament game. So I think I need to fess up to that. I think I need to fess up to the fact that in 2010, I thought it was a charge. Looking back, it was not. It was a blocking foul on Brian Zubek, but your host of the Locked On Baylor podcast was rooting for Duke in 2010. I don't apologize for it. I won't, but I need to be honest with you guys. I have long since ditched that fandom, right? Like I don't consider myself a Duke fan anymore. I have not followed them actively in a decade since I started going to Baylor. I think that's my personal opinion on college sports. Like if you're a fan of a Power 4 team growing up and you go to a different Power 4 school, like you should abdicate that and become a fan of your alma mater. That's just me personally. I'm not going to get on anybody for doing it any other way, but I needed to be honest with you guys. I was a huge Duke fan growing up, and I have waited for this kind of matchup. And I really wish we got it in either 16 or 17 because I thought those Baylor teams were pretty good and could have given Duke a run for its money. And Baylor didn't hold up their end in 16 when they lost to Yale. Duke couldn't hold up their end in 17 to get to the Sweet 16 when they lost to South Carolina, who eventually beat Baylor in the Sweet 16 at Madison Square Garden. But I am psyched for this. We already got, for personal reasons, the Baylor North Carolina matchup. I still hate UNC. It didn't go my way. Now we will get the ultimate. I've had friends texting me, giving their condolences that I have to pick one in this one. I did root for Baylor twice against Duke in football in my time here, but that's what I wanted to say, was that I have abdicated it. I have ditched Duke. Okay, I've been a Baylor fan for 10 years now. I run a Baylor podcast every day. That's not going to be an issue here. And I was really, really heated when they lost to Duke last year because I thought they were a better team. Anyway, why should Baylor even take the floor against Duke? Because I know you guys have heard it all this weekend. Duke's going to smash Baylor. This Baylor team stinks. Duke's going to win the national championship. I've seen the Duke burners already just having a field day, talking about, what Baylor coaches were behind them, saying, oh, Jesus Christ, which I don't think they were saying, but hey, about having to face this mighty Duke team. And you know what? One of my favorite basketball movies ever, the greatest basketball movie ever, is Hoosiers. I watched it again recently because of the late, great Gene Hackman and his passing. And all the things they're saying about Baylor and Duke sounds a lot like what they were saying about Hickory versus South Bend Central, or in real life, Milan against Muncie Central. But there's a reason why we play this game. It's called March Madness for a reason. And so far, we have not had madness. We've had 2 12/5 seed wins. But the thing that gives me hope and gives me confidence is how much this sport parallels. Okay? I'm going deep in the bag here because I remembered that there's so much chalk in the first 2 rounds, like no real stunners in the first 2 days of the NCAA tournament this year, which sucks. And I remembered back to 2010 because that's the other time that I remember that playing out that way. And Thursday and Friday, there was just no huge upsets, right? And we were like, damn, this stinks. In 2010, remember that was the same year that Baylor played Duke in the Elite Eight in Houston. Because in 2010, there were no humongous upsets in the first round. And then we got one of the upsets of the decade in the second round. Number 1 overall seed Kansas, which was in the top 3 the entire season and was number 1 overall at the preseason and going into the NCAA tournament. In the second round, they lost a stunner to 9-seeded Northern Iowa. No one expected them to lose. Everyone had them winning the national championship. Here we go. 15 years later. Here is Duke who is supposed to be the national champions. They haven't dropped out of the top 5 really all year. They've got the number 1 overall pick. Everyone's saying too good. What are they? First in net rating, third in offensive rating, fourth in defensive rating. They shoot the ball well, inside, outside, athletic. They rebound. They play hella good defense. How is anyone going to beat them? Man, sure sounds like what we were saying about Kansas in 2010. Anything can happen here. And if Baylor has some sort of Ali Farouk Manesh that they can pull out in the second round in 2025, just like Northern Iowa did in 2010, we could have a repeat of that tournament. Baylor has the opportunity of a lifetime to shock the world tomorrow and tell them that we are still a player in college basketball. We're not going away. And oh yeah, we have a national championship more recently than Duke does. Just throwing that out there. I think Baylor's going to hang with them. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. How is Baylor going to score the upset on Sunday? What can they do to knock off mighty Duke? Give me your score predictions. Give me what needs to happen down in the, or if I'm crazy, let me know down in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. Ring that notification bell to get notified when we're going live. You see a bonus episode like today, you're going to get notified through that bell. And then tomorrow afternoon when we are going live after the game. Thank you guys for making it your first listen today and every day, even on the weekends, on the bonus episodes. We will see you on the other side of Baylor Duke on your favorite podcast, Locked On Baylor.